Hello, students. In this lecture, we are going to discuss techniques used in postmodern fiction. Now, postmodern fiction uses a variety of unique techniques that make it stand out. These techniques are all about playing with the idea of storytelling and questioning traditional ways of writing, reading, stories. So, in this lecture, we are going to discuss some of the main techniques of postmodernism. Okay, so first one is intertextuality. So, postmodern writers often reference or borrow from other works of literature, art, or popular culture within their own stories. In fact, you may think of it as a literary collage where quotes, ideas, or styles from other works are mixed in order to create a new story. So, this technique helps to show that no story stands alone and that stories are connected, thereby creating layers and layers of meaning. Next is pastiche. Pastiche is when writers blend different styles, genres, or references. For example, they might mix horror and romance, or maybe mimic other writers' styles. So, this can create something humorous or even confusing, but it also highlights the idea that storytelling itself is fluid. So, by combining different elements, pastiche blurs the lines between genres, showing that the stories don't need to fit neatly into one single box. Okay, metafiction. Now, metafiction is when a story is aware of itself as a story. So, sometimes characters might speak directly to the reader, or maybe the author might remind you that the story is not real. So, metafiction makes readers think about how stories are made or constructed and how truth in stories is often constructed, making you more aware of the act of storytelling. Next is unreliable narrators. Now, in postmodern fiction, you often come across narrators who might not be telling the truth. That is, they might distort the truth, or they see the world uh, in an unusual manner. So, this can be confusing, but it also reflects the idea that truth is something personal and subjective. So, the narrator's version of events may differ from what actually has happened, pushing readers to question what is real and what is invented. So, what actually happened and what has been imagined, they can be two different things. Okay, but then when you would be reading the novel, you believe you are confused, you're in a confused state. Next is fragmented or non linear narratives. Now, unlike your traditional linear stories that start at the beginning and move forward, postmodern stories often jump around in time, or they might even feel incomplete or fragmented. Now, this technique reflects the idea that life doesn't always follow a clear path, and it can make a story feel more like pieces of puzzle. So you might find stories within stories or chapters that are out of order, challenging readers to piece things together in order to understand the story of the novel. Playfulness and dark humor is another technique of postmodern fiction. Now, postmodern fiction often uses this humor in serious or unexpected situations. Now, this playfulness can come through in the way characters speak or in the author's tone, which may mock traditional ideas of heroism, chauvinism, romance, storytelling. Dark humor, in particular, can make serious subjects light in nature, forcing readers to think deeply about uncomfortable issues in a less direct way. Next is magical realism, another technique. So, some postmodern stories introduce magical or fantastical elements into real mundane settings, treating them as normal. So, this can make readers question the boundaries between reality and imagination. Characters encounter fantastical events without any kind of surprise, blending the real and the magical to show that reality can have many layers. Next is paranoia and conspiracy. The many most postmodern stories explore themes of paranoia and the idea that there might be hidden forces controlling reality. Paranoia, I hope you understand, paranoia is it's a sort of psychological disorder where you get delusions about different things that are happening around you. Okay, so this the element of paranoia and conspiracy can create a sense of distrust or make characters feel powerless, which reflects real life concerns about authority. So, stories may hint at conspiracies or make readers feel that the truth is elusive, that the truth is something that nobody can even describe or come at. Okay, next technique is parody and irony. Now, postmodern writers often use parody to mimic or mock other styles, genres, or societal norms. Sometimes they would even exaggerate these elements to make a point. So, irony, which is the use of language or situations that mean the opposite of what is expected, is uh, is going to add is going to add humor or highlights the absurdity of certain ideas, making readers question established beliefs and norms. Next is fabulation. Now, fabulation is when postmodern stories embrace wild imagination. They invent fantastic worlds, strange characters, or events that go beyond traditional realism. Now, do not get confused between magical realism. Uh, why? Because unlike magical realism, which blends magical elements with a realistic world, fabulation creates its own unique fictional reality. So, it is more about playful storytelling that doesn't feel bound by the rules of the real world. You may, in fact, think of it as storytelling freedom, where anything and everything can happen. Next is poemina. Now, it is a fancy term for stories about the process of making stories. A poimenon. Now, poimenon is the singular word of poemina. So, it is a type of metafiction where the story focuses on its own creation or on storytelling as some sort of activity. It might show a writer struggling with writing, or a book within a book that mirrors the main story. So, this technique makes readers think about the art of storytelling itself and how stories are crafted. Next one is very important for Blind Assassin. Now, historiographic metafiction. Now, this is when fiction blends with real historical events and questions how we interpret history. Postmodern writers use this technique. By using this technique, they might include real historical figures or events in their stories, but they would often mix them with fiction or change certain details, thereby making you wonder what is real and what is imagined. Now, what it does is it blurs the line between fiction and history, thereby suggesting that history itself can be subjective and constructed. So, The Blind Assassin by Atwood, it uses this very technique of postmodernist fiction. Next is temporal distortion. The temporal distortion is when a story plays with time. Events might jump around, loop, or overlap in unusual manner. Characters might even experience time in strange ways, with past, present, and future blending together. So, this technique reflects the postmodern view that time is not always straightforward and that people experience it subjectively. Now, next one is maximalism. Now, maximalism is all about excess and abundance in storytelling. So, these stories are packed with detail. They have complex plots where one may find lots and lots of characters, digressions, heavy description. So, it is like a more is more approach where the story may feel sprawling or overwhelming, but also rich and full of layers. So you can say maximalism shows that sometimes excess can be a way to reflect life's complexity. Next is minimalism. So it is the opposite of maximalism. Now, minimalism is all about simplicity and restraint. Minimalist stories use a sparse language, fewer characters, and straightforward plot lines, leaving a lot to the reader's imagination. Okay, so the focus is often on subtlety and implication rather than detailed description. So, minimalist postmodern fiction might seem simple, but it often leaves readers to find deeper meanings in what is left unsaid. So, readers are required to read between the lines. Okay, so now we are going to conclude this lecture by saying that all these techniques that we have talked about so far, they add depth, style, and a unique sense of unpredictability to postmodern literature. This encourages readers to engage with stories in unconventional ways and not just be a passive reader. सिर्फ पढ़ना नहीं है, उसमें इनफैक्ट अपने आप को घुसाना है, एक एक्टिव रीडर बनना है, समझना है कि पजल कैसे सॉल्व हो रहा है, कैसे सॉर्ट आउट करेंगे कि स्टोरी समझ में आए. ओके, सो दे the each kind of technique challenge readers to question ideas of reality, history, time, and storytelling itself. So it shows that literature can be both entertaining and thought provoking at the same time. So these techniques make postmodern fiction feel fresh, unpredictable, and complex also at the same time. So the aim is to engage readers in a new way, making them active participants in uncovering the meaning while while questioning the boundaries of reality, identity, and storytelling itself. That's all. Thank you.